Okay, we had some issues with Restream. Apparently something changed, so it took me a second to recover. So hopefully people are starting to come in. I know it's kind of painful. Let me just get everything set up here, because Restream is good times today. So let's see. Anybody show up yet? Probably going to be a couple seconds. Nobody knows. So, Restream was giving me some issues today, guys, so it's going to be a little bit slow setting things up here. So, apparently, Restream's streaming key decided not to work anymore. So, it took me a second to get things up and running here. So, if you have questions, post them in the chat, and then I'll take care of those for you in a second. Just need to get these downloads corrected. It's going to take a second. While that's going on, I'll show you the printer. It's almost there. I just want to bolt something down real quick here. But the design is in flux still, so it's going to be kind of fun to see what happens. I might modify it so it's a lot easier to work with, but this is where we're at. I haven't reprinted yet the actual base. There'll be some changes in that as well, but this flows really nice, and I gotta make some changes to how it actually moves still. So let me check, see if there's any questions first. Nope, it's kind of quiet. Well, looks like people are starting to join in here. If you got questions, put them in the chat. This is the new printer. It's almost there. I've got some more mods to make on this. I wanted to have good clearance so that you could adjust under here, so I gotta make some more mods. But this is what it's gonna look like on top. And hopefully by next week, if I get time to print this weekend, I'll have the printer done. I still got to do the side rails for the Z-axis, so that's the next challenge. But this is what it's starting to look like. So, what questions you guys have today? Can you hear me okay? Because I just did a firmware update on the computer, so I don't know if everything's working yet. Apparently updates are the big thing, so how is the sound? Okay, well, it's kind of quiet in here today. So what questions you guys have today? I think I sent out a poll on the days that people would like to have live stream. So if you have a day that you like, let me know and we'll set that up. But I've got some new boards that are coming, and hopefully we'll have a chance to actually go over some interesting stuff. Let's see, let me extract this out and see if they made any changes to the Marlin firmware. So apparently Marlin's got some issues they're working on, and we might branch into other firmwares. We could try Reprap today, see if it works. But you gotta let me know what you want to do. So let me know how the sound is, because I'm not sure if it's coming out on your side. All the updates that occurred today made it kind of interesting. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna explore another firmware today. So we're gonna go over to Reprap and see what we've got there. So I'm gonna pull up what I'm doing here just in a second. So in the browser, we're going to start a new instance, and we're going to look for Reprap Firmware, hopefully. And we got Reprap Firmware right here. So I don't know where it is exactly, so let's see if we can do a download. Reprap.org maybe? So we got config tools, compatible boards. Let's take a look at that. So there's the Duet. I don't have that. I don't have that. So let's see. All these are Duets. So let's see what we got for firmwares. Doesn't look like it's actively being developed, but it does say 32-bit processors. So let's see what we got for software here. Reprap firmware. Says the documentation, drivers. So maybe this is not the best firmware to work with. So let's see what firmwares we can use for 32-bit boards. Okay. So let's see what we got here. All 3D printer firmwares, which to choose and how to change it. So this might be kind of interesting, or it might just be painful. So I'm just scrolling through to see what they have for lists, and looks like Marlin. Making a switch to a new firmware. Let's see, Repetier firmware. That one looks like we can work with that. So let's try that. So let's see if we can find the download for it. I've loaded this once before, so it's probably going to be slightly challenging because I haven't done it in a while. First steps, troubleshooting, G-code plugins, LCD menu, firmware download. Let's see, I strongly suggest if you're interested in this to do a donation, but at the moment we're just going to see what happens here. So we're just going to save this. This might be a little bit messy. I'm going to get the printer out of the way for the moment. And let's see if we have something in here. So I'm going to go over to downloads and we'll see what we've got. So looks like we have an executable. Executables can be fun or they can be a problem. So let's try out the executable and see what happens. This might not show you the display in a second. Yeah, so I'm clicking yes, and it's asking me if I want to install in English. So we'll go with that. There's the user license agreement. We're going to accept that. Next, 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 and create a shortcut on the desktop. Then we'll install and see what happens. Now we can watch, well, we can't watch the install here, but sometimes they give you a little thing that will allow you to see it. So this looks like it's just installing a host software on your computer. This ought to be interesting. So it says it's done. Let's try next. We'll agree. We'll do next. We'll install the server. And now we can see the details. So let me check on questions while this is going on. Well, it's still kind of quiet. So I thought there was a Reprap software. So this might be going in the wrong direction, but we'll find out. So it looks like it opens a local web page. Let me show you what this looks like. So apparently it's free. And I've read and accepted, right? Now it's saying what the IP address is apparently on my network. So I'm going to go back to the Reprap web page and see what we got here. So there's Reprap Firmware. Let's try downloading that. Hopefully it's not the same thing I just tried. It says Reprap host. That's awesome. So it doesn't look very much like they have a firmware like we're normally used to. It used to a couple years ago. So let's see what we've got here. Interesting. This might not work out as well as I thought. In the future, maybe I should try these things out before I actually do that. 3D models. That doesn't mean anything to me. Homepage. Well, this has got nothing that's easily worked with. I'm thinking Repetier uses Marlin, but that's not very interesting. So Reprap Firmware, we'll try that again. Hopefully we can find something. Config tool. So this is types of printers, so we'll go with the Creality. And we'll do an ANET just for the heck of it. Custom configuration. So it's a Cartesian printer. So in this case, it's XYZ. So they're talking about, it looks like bed size and bed size again. So for this printer or for an Ender, it's 235 on the Pro and it's 250 for the Max. Homing preferences, don't really care, but let's go next. Let's see, driver, end stop pin. So this is talking about pins on the board. So in this case, we'll do a Z stop pin. We're using E0, I guess. We'll use both fans for now. It's got a heat bed, nozzle. Let's see, input pin for Z probe. We're not going to do that at the moment. And let's go next. So we can see what happens here just by fiddling with these. I'm guessing we're going to see a Marlin file. And it thinks that it's using TMCs, I'm guessing. Put a switch on the Z-axis. On the low end, that means the 0 position instead of the max. We're not using a probe, but it keeps thinking we are. So no probe. So they're telling you default values. We're going to do 200 because it's PLA. So these are pulse width modulation, I believe, for the limits. R25, I'm not sure what that is, but these look like some kind of calibration settings, so I'm going to just say next. I'm guessing these are the fan frequencies, so I'll do next. Number of tools. I think there's just one, being the hot end. So let's go next. It's talking about probing again because it thinks there's a BL Touch. This looks like a login for a website. And let's finish. So let's see what the download configuration bundle zip looks like. I'm guessing that this is not going to have any of the stuff we're looking for. So while that's loading, I'll check on the actual chat. It's kind of quiet in here. So let's check the downloads folder and see what's in here. So it looks like this is our configuration zip. So let's see what's going on in here. Apparently these are Repetier host files. So let's say we accept. That looks like a printer to me. or part of something. Might be holding filament, but it looks like you're rendering in here. Kind of a smooth transition. Looks like there's a slicer here. It says the quality. You can add a brim. See if we can re-render this. Doesn't look like we can do much. Touching bed. Cura's the slicing engine, I guess. Or we can use slicer. Yeah, it looks like a holder for a filament. It's asking me to say where the slicer is, so let's go to the desktop. So it's in here. This is an old slicer. So let's see if it grabs it, apply it. Let's see. It's looking for the executable. Desktop. Slicer. That's awesome. Slice, maybe? Anyways, this might be harder to use than I thought. Let's see what the configuration manager says. So these are start and end. So it's turning off the heat bed here, and there should be something to turn off the extruder, which is right here. So it's setting the first extruder to 0. That's the G code for it. So that's not very interesting. So let's see if we can figure out what's going on over here. Apparently we can watch stuff. There's Cura. But it's slick looking, but I don't know how well this works. Let's try easy mode. Looks like I gotta click over here to move something. Maybe it's export. Test. I just installed it from scratch just to see what would happen. It's not very fun for me to use, so let's see if we can open this and see what happens. So apparently that might be the file. Let's see if we can move it around. Add object, scale object, scale maximum. Let's see, 50%. Let's try 75%. Well, that's not too much fun. Let's see, plus 90. That's easier to work with though. I don't know, this slicer does not look like it's usable in most cases. This looks like it's actually connects to a printer, but we don't have one connected at the moment. So maybe we could try that. Yeah. But so far it's not very interesting software. So I'm gonna plug in a actual board and see if this shows up. So you can hear it. Let's see, COM ports, it's probably 13. Speed is probably correct. So let's apply. Say okay. Apparently I can't send any G codes. Awesome. Huh. Can't get in here. Looks like it's pointing to slice with Kura's engine. Cooling's on. Manual control. Why is that not working? Let's see. Printer. Extruder. Shape of the bed maybe. Scripts advanced. Let's try reopening it. It might be web-based too, and that might be why I'm having trouble. So I might have to change the address. Or I have to somehow register it. You have the click connect on the left. Oh, yeah. I'm looking over on the right. Let's load a file. Connect doesn't work. Let me check the board. The board looks like it's on USB power, so it should at least show up. It's on the right port, I think, so let's check that real quick. So if we go to Device Manager, and I slide this over, go to Ports, it's 13. So why is it not working? Oh, it says connected right now. So let's try G codes. Manual control, there we go. M119. And that shows us nothing. So there's got to be some kind of output display someplace in here. Manual control. So they give you the ability to send a G code but not see anything. Let's try echo. Let's try this again. M119. Oh, sorry. Did not expect that. That's where it's showing up. So obviously I'm not seeing things. I would try heating, but there's no heater. I'll show you what I'm working with. So if I go over to the workbench, that's all I have connected right now. So I'm just checking the outputs to see if they're working. So I'll connect a end stop switch just so we can see what's occurring. So let's pull that out for a second. Let me grab an end stop. And I think voltage is on top on this one, so this is X minimum. So let's double check this before I power it and cause my board to explode. So let's go over to the browser for a second and verify this real quick. So inside the browser, go over to Big Tree Tech, we'll check to see what we've got. Let's see, hardware, and we'll look for pin outs. Then we have to scroll over on this one, and 5 volts is on top, signals on the bottom. So we're good there. So let's try this again. Let me readjust the size here. And it should say, instead of triggered, it should say open, hopefully. So let's see what happens. Let me make sure that you're in, well, we're disconnected, so that's not smart. So let me bring you over to where I am here. I'm just powering up the board with 5 volts. We'll check the connection. Looks like it just came online. So let's do an M119 again. And it says everything is triggered, so it's like it's not connected. So I'm going to show you that it's connected, hopefully. So let's go over to the workbench. We have this. I'm going to click down. It's got a little light coming on. I know it's hard to see. So let's go back over to the desktop to see what's going on. We're going to do M119 again. And it says triggered. So it is working, but it seems to be working the opposite. And that could be because I loaded firmware that makes it think that it's not using that end stop the way that we think. But hang on a second, let me get the mouse where I can actually see what's going on in the chat. Yeah, so the baud rate is easy enough to figure out. If you go over to printer settings, there we go. Connection, we know that it's COM13, we know the baud rate, and it's auto detect. So these settings I'm not too sure about, but they're probably buffer or something. So we know we're connected to the board because it's giving us a connection symbol in the upper left hand corner. But all in all, I'm not super impressed with this, just because there's a lot of things I don't know what's going on. So operating, that looks like, let's see, turn off operation, or excuse me, turn off the operating current for all motors. This can change the position. So it also looks like you can move both motors at once here, or you can move one of them. So let's select one. Oh, still looks like you're only going to trigger one thing. So let's see what happens. Oh wow, that's kind of cool though. At least you can move, 50. Kind of like that display. This only goes 10. That's saying how much filament to extrude, I'm guessing. And I'm not sure if that's a second actual extruder. Feed rate controls, flow rate controls. Looks like there's a fan control. And then extruder temperature. So slicing. So it looks like that's how you slice. I don't know where the file is being created, but that looks like what we just created because it has a little base underneath. So maybe we can edit the G codes. That's kind of interesting. So you can actually see the movements of the printer here. And at the very end, you'll see like an ending script where it shuts things down. So turn off steppers, disable heat bed, and then there's power off the extruder rate here, I believe. I don't know why there's not a comment. We can double check this though. We can go over to Marlin and check the G code real quick. So if you go to configuration, let's see, G codes, and we find M104, set hot end temperature, so it's turning it off. So it's setting it to 0 for the first extruder, which is 0. So those are the commands. Let's see, manual control. There's more over here. SD card. So I guess you can push a file to the SD card. Let's go back to Slicer and see if there's anything we can change here. Well, a lot of the settings are not very easy to see. Let's see, structure, advanced. Yeah, I'm not picking out too much on here that is easy for me to work with, but I'm sure others might enjoy this. But that's the original. Let's see, rotate. Doesn't work very well. Yeah, it looks very hard to work with. Isometric view, that means that you're seeing things in 3 dimensions. That's one side's view. It's top view. Or that's top view. Oh, that's the use parallel projection. Not sure what that's for, but it looks like it's showing printer volume. Temperature curves, I'm guessing this will show you what's going on with each one of your heaters, your bed. Target temperatures, averages. We could probably hook something up, but obviously I'm not super comfortable with this yet. Here are the Cura settings in here. Apparently they kind of align them up. Kind of like Pronter Face, I guess. Or Slicer. Still don't know what that means. Let's see. Filament travel. I thought there was a setting for putting a bed underneath it. That looks interesting. Easy mode. So let's see if we can find the old Cura, or not Cura, the Slicer. That's interesting. So it talks about your belts and what your configuration might be on your printer. And that's where the 80 value probably comes from. But if you do this and calculate, it doubles. Those are rare. Well, hang on, I gotta take care of wanna become famous guy. Apparently it's not as easy as I thought. Oh well. We'll just let him chat with himself. Anyways, kind of boring. I know people have been asking about it. I know it's easier to use for some. For me, I still have a preference. Let's see, lead calculator. Apparently there's no way to close that except escape. We can do different screws here, so you can actually calculate what the actual ratio is. If you have a 0.9 degree step and your micro stepping can go to 256, that's your value, allegedly. I don't know with Marlin's firmware if that's actually true, but Reprap probably does it different. I'm just poking around the different folders. Well, I'm in the wrong place, but let's see if there's anything for Reprap in here. No, I don't see anything. So, does anybody have any questions? Because I've been just playing with this. I obviously am not an expert in it. But I'm going to close that out. And let's see if we can find something else in this folder. Config.g. Let's see those dots? They're under the slice with engine. So dots. Okay, it's connected. No, I'm just trying to find the dots. Let's see, clear log, show log, commands. On the right. The slicer. Slicer. I don't know, it doesn't give a very good acknowledgement of what you're working with, so let's try this. Oh, it's got honeycomb. That's one of my favorites, is honeycomb. But a lot of people like hypercurve. So, 3 dots. It's the logs. Originally I thought there was a firmware for this, but I don't know where it is. Awesome. But you guys have any questions so I can talk about something other than Reprap, because you're seeing me struggle with it. Add new printer. SKR. Marlin firmware, serial connection. COM port 13. We'll do auto detect. Continue. Just want to see if this works. It's not looking like it's connecting, but the baud rate is wrong. Try that again. Yep. Sorry, the messages keep scrolling down to the bottom now. On the right, I'm using a ramps, and it has issues. What are your issues on the ramps? Let's see. No detectable device. Maybe I'm already connected. Let's try disconnecting and closing. Finished. Finished. Oh, here comes Repetier host. Let's try connecting. That's why I couldn't connect. It already had a connection. I guess it's testing the buffer size by sending something. Apparently it doesn't think it has a buffer. So I guess this is how much it spools out to the actual printer. Kind of neat. I guess that optimizes how much you send. So Abdul, what is the issue with the ramps 1.4? Well, continue to step 3. So it's finding the defaults, I'm guessing. With the MOSFET, it always gets too hot and then the board doesn't work. So you're saying the MOSFET on the board is overheating? If it's overheating, what you need to think about is what's the voltage you're putting into the board and what are you stepping with? Or are you talking about the steppers get too hot, meaning the stepper motors? So let me bring up a image of this actual printer and close this down for a second. So if we go over here and we say ramps 1.4 and then do pinouts. Are you talking about over in here? The MOSFETs are getting too hot? Or are you talking on the steppers? Okay, so what's the voltage of your heat bed? Because I think this image might have issues. Let's see if it's this one. Because that is incorrect. 12 or 35 volts. It should only be able to do on the ramps 12 volts. So that might be a problem. Okay. And then what kind of bed do you have? And what's the resistance on the bed? I don't know why these are incorrectly labeled. That's super interesting to me. Let's go to Reprap and see what's going on. Let's see. Pinouts. Let's go to the board. Ramps 1.4. Go to ramps 1.4. You can check the voltage. Interesting. I don't know when they changed that. Originally it was only 12 volts. I just might not know what I'm talking about anymore. So you're running 12 volts to your board for your heat bed. What's the thermistor on your heat bed? Is your thermistor working correctly? Has anything been disabled or enabled to make it work? Yeah, don't worry about the bed resistance. How about this? Over on Discord, that's in the description below, you can post your configuration and we can take a look at it and see what's going on. I think there's one thing that we could look at, but I'm guessing this is centered around... Yeah, I'm guessing this is centered around the thermistor, where the issue might be occurring. And I'll show you how to test that real quick. I just gotta grab one. Maybe one that's not broken. Okay, I'll show you this real quick. Actually, this one's not going to work because it's doesn't have connector pins on it. So let me grab another one. Here we go. So I'm going to use the heat bed that I'm using right here. And I'll bring the camera up so you can see what I'm talking about. Now the camera might power off. I'm working on that problem. The thermistor is located right here on my board. So I'm going to power this down for a second. And I'm going to connect the board right here. Then I'm going to power it back up. Now it's obviously not going to work for me. And the reason being is that I haven't set up the actual thermistor. So let's go over to VS Code for a second and see what's going on here. So in VS Code, I'm just going to open in my downloads folder my Marlin, select the folder. Inside here, I'm going to wait a second for it to load. Then I'm going to go to source boards core. This is a different board, I know, but the process is similar. I'm going to search on the SKR. It's the SKR Turbo, so I'm going to copy that. Then I'll minimize core source, go to configuration.h, search on motherboard, paste it over the ramps, change this to -1 so I can load the firmware, and then I'm going to search on thermistor, and it brings me to the thermistors. Now, first things first, the thermistor in here is for the bed sensor. Now, I know mine's probably going to be 1 or 8. So I'm going to go with 1 and plug this in. And then I'm going to also check on thermal runaway. So these should be enabled always. Do not disable them, because this will keep you from this will keep you from burning down your house or harming others by accident. So always leave these alone. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to load this on the board. I'm just going to check real quick to see if the board exists. It does. So I'm going to change my platform io.ini from my default environment to LPC 1769 because I'm not using the ramps. I'll do a clean and then I'll do an upload after it builds. So it's going to build and then upload. And then what we'll do is we'll double check to make sure it loaded. I'll power cycle the camera while this is going on. And then what we'll do is we'll take this and we'll see if it's over here. So it does look like it loaded. So let's go back over to the board for a second. I know the loading for your board is different. You can disconnect, reconnect. Then I'll open up Pronterface in 2 seconds. Okay, so let's go over to Pronterface. Inside Pronterface, I'm going to connect to the device. Obviously, I'm not connecting to the right one, so let's do that again. And I might have another connection in use. So let me kill some things here quick. And let me check to see if it's actually okay. So I got 2 instances of Pronterface open apparently. Let me just check this. And let's try reconnecting again. Doesn't work, so let's try 17. And it's not working, so we're going to go over to Device Manager. Inside Device Manager, we're going to check to see if the board exists. It does. So we've got some kind of issue with our actual connection now. It's on 13, so it should connect. So I'm guessing that print run or Repeteer is still running in the background. So let me check that real quick. Let's see. That's awesome. I can't tell if it's there. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to figure out what's going on here. So let's check to see what we've got going on. We're connected, so that's good. And the only programs we've got running are Discord, Firefox, platformio.ini. That shouldn't be connected right now. So I'm going to close this and reopen it. And it looks like the port is still denied. So what I'm going to do is disconnect, reconnect the port, and hopefully we'll lose that connection that's causing the issue. So I'm going to pull the USB and move it to a different port. Hopefully it'll re-enumerate. So then we'll check Device Manager. Inside Device Manager, it's still 13. Let's try connecting. So let's go over and check VS Code, see if I made a mistake there. I think the issue has to do with loading Repeteer. So we'll check on motherboard. So the speed's correct. -1 is correct. So what has changed? So I'm going to go over to Programs and Features. And I'm going to whack that install. So the install that took place today, it's going to take a second for me to find. I want to do it by date. And of course it's not working out that way. So 3D Viewer, that was installed today, so we'll uninstall that. And 3D Builder, I think that's Microsoft's product, so we'll leave that alone. Let's see. Repetir host. So let's kill this first. It's just prompting me to ask if I want to uninstall. And let's uninstall this. So it's prompting me to uninstall. So I'm going to say yes, uninstall, show details. So there might be a service running that's causing issues, and that's why I'm going after it. A service is like a daemon in Unix, I think. So we'll close that. We'll go back over to Pronterface, try and connect, and that was the issue. So that's why I don't run Repetir on my computer. So back to what we're looking at. We're looking at the temperature right now for B, which says -15. So the question is, do I have it connected correctly? So I'm going to put my thumb on it and we'll see what happens. So let me show you what I'm about to do. So the thermistor is right here. So I'm just going to put my finger here. And we're going to watch to see if anything changes. And apparently nothing's changing. So it could mean we have a bad thermistor, or it could be that we're not seeing it correctly. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go over and I'm going to check on this piece, make sure that it's working. It says TH right here, so I believe TB is actually where we should be. So I'm going to reconnect, then I'll go back over to Pronterface. I'll disconnect, reconnect, and now it looks like we've got a little bit of temperature there, so I'll put my finger over it again. And you can see that it's going up to my body temperature. So that's one way you can test this. Testing it with continuity is kind of painful because it doesn't work real well. Let's see, serial port should be -1 for the 32-bit boards. For the 8-bit boards, it's going to be 0. I know that's a little confusing. Let's see. Yeah, I think you guys were yelling the answer while I was working on that. Well, Abdul, just so you know, there is a Discord that you can go to that's listed in the description, and you can ask questions in the general chat and someone will be able to answer them if I'm not there, or they'll at least point you in the right direction of things to check. But this has been going on for about an hour. Sorry for all the issues initially. Apparently I had some trouble with Restream and software updates today, so it got started a little late. But if you guys don't have a lot of questions today, I'm gonna let you go because you saw how much fun I had with Repetir today. And I'll catch up with you Monday, as tomorrow I need to actually catch up on other stuff that's not related to printing and get that all squared away over the weekend. So there's a lot of new tutorials for people that don't know that are up on Patreon that'll eventually spool out to YouTube. So if you want to see an early view of an actual video, the queue of videos I think is about 20 long. Might be a little bit more than that or less. But The new firmware came out halfway in between me recording those videos, so they might have some dated information. But for now, everyone, take care, be safe, wear a mask, and get vaccinated. And I'll catch up with you on Monday. Thank you for joining me for this short stream.